Hey everyone, day 18 out of 30, and I just ate some humble pie. Um, yep, 18 days ago we got served a notice to vacate our tiny home from the land we're on, and the news, or the update on our actual home is that we have one opportunity so far, which is very nice opportunity. We will getting back to our friend and letting them know that we are interested. It is something that we would be able to be at for a year, and it is in Sebastopol. So that's that part of the update. The other part is the humble pie that I just got from the Planning and Economic Development Center or office here at the city of Santa Rosa. And there is a temporary use permit option. There is a junior ADU option out there, and there is an accessory dwelling unit. And I asked the ladies at the desk, I was like, they were very helpful, very, very helpful. I said, have you ever heard of where you would put a junior ADU? ADU stands for accessory dwelling unit, AKA in-law unit, granny unit. Junior is more likely to be connected to the home. And then I said, could you see a junior ADU, an ADU, which is more likely to be detached, and a temporary use permit of a tiny home? Have you ever seen something like that? No. So that would be totally new. So the three properties that I had in mind that we took a look at with my realtor, Joni, the other day, each one of them had issues. Like the 2-car garage that we could turn into an ADU was right on the property line, and you need a minimum of 5-foot setback. There was another property where we were looking at where it had more room in the front of the yard for a tiny home. And I did one breakthrough is that you can put a tiny home directly onto ground because we're on wheels and the stabilizers, which don't need a concrete pad. And because it's a temporary use permit, all is good. But if you were to go and apply for a temporary use permit, guess what happens? The city comes out and does an inspection of your property, and the little garage in the backyard was right on the property line. And what they had was a really cool tool. They took where we were now and went back in time to like, I think the 50s or 60s, and saw how the property had changed. Like, they have aerial view of this, and they can see what buildings were there and when they were placed there. It's like Google Earth back in time. No joke. It was like, oh my goodness. So they knew that no, that had been built without a permit, because it was built, or maybe it was who knows, at that time, did the permit allow for something that wasn't a setback? Well, nowadays you need setbacks. We thought about a tiny home in the front yard because there was no backyard in this home. And you had to have a minimum of 15 feet from the front, road per se. So could you allow for that? Well, that puts a tiny home like right in the front of the house. Not visually ideal. You do need to have neighbors and everyone get alerted to what's happening. They could complain, but if they have complaints of it doesn't look good, or I don't like it, or, a lot of times they want to know who's going to be moving there. That's really not a motivation to like say no, that they don't get awarded that permit. But the people could also go and appeal at the department. So these are all things I'm uncovering. And what I'm going to take away, a message from the planner directly, is some of the messiest properties are the best. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to tear everything down, but you have to bring things up to code. It could be that you have to bring it to the building code. If something's right on the property line and it hasn't been permitted, you need to make sure it's legally built. So did the right construction happen? It may also call for suppression system, fire suppression. So it'd be good to actually find out how much something like that costs to put in. Some of those things you're not going to put suppression system and crack open the walls. You're going to put it running, a conduit on the top of the wall and just make it, paint it in. So I feel like I'm stepping into a new realm, which is similar to what I feel is as a master's degree. And this is like day one. And I go into these wonderful people that give me information. And pretty much the first day I walked in, I felt very encouraged, very excited, just reading the fine print. Then I've heard that some of these things take about 6 months, this permit takes to get. Well, if you're buying a home and you're relying on that being part of the rent, that's not something that we want to go into. It's not a very reliable opportunity for investment. So back to the drawing board is where I'm at. It may be that we place tiny homes on land and don't get permits and don't call for things and see what happens. And that could be a neighbor complains. And if they complain, code enforcement comes out. But that could open up a whole can of worms for properties that have non-legal, non-conforming buildings. A lot of these little garages and stuff plopped down in the 50s and 60s and 70s would not comply now. A lot to think about. So it's getting simplified, and also realizing if I stay at this in this area, I'm gonna find something. And back to the messiest properties can be the best, and just trusting that. So this is Lindsay with a lot of education ahead of her, but also very enthusiastic about helping people go tiny. I'm not going to stop on that. I'm not, they've got the temporary use permit for a reason. Fires came through here and dropped a lot of homes to ash. So it's time for recovery. It's time for figuring out what's possible. And the ones that stay at it consistently will be the ones that prevail. I just hope it's within enough time. I'd love to do things legally. I really would. And I really would not bring forth investors unless it was something that was legal. But we've all got to know that someone's got to know this stuff. And I surely know I don't know. So I've got to find some experts. I feel like I could like, hey, city planner, want to go out to dinner? Pick their brain, or someone else. So anyone out there watching this video, if you know someone in this area that knows their way around these kind of things, I'm thinking general contractor, probably, that has been around for a while, that's been a seasoned person, that has dealt with permitting and planning, could probably help me out a lot. So that's the next step. Check out experiencetinyhomes.org if you want to go tiny and are looking to go tiny. There's plenty of places that are already legal. I'm already thinking that San Luis Obispo and LA might be a different place for us to focus on. But meanwhile, there's Santa Rosa. We've got to take care of where we're at. All right, you guys, have a good one.